This morning, you got dressed without thinking about it. You pulled on a shirt, maybe pants, maybe a jacket if it was cold. It felt automatic, meaningless even. But the real answer to why you did that is far stranger than "it's cold outside." Because your ancestors didn't start wearing clothes when you'd expect. Not when they left the warmth of the tropics. Not even when they wandered into freezing landscapes for the first time. They waited. For a long time. So what were they doing all those years, walking through the cold with nothing but skin? To understand this, you have to go back further than clothing itself. You have to go back to fur. Every early human ancestor had it. Thick, warm, all over the body, just like every other mammal walking the earth at the time. Fur was the default. Fur was survival. Then, somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, something strange happened. Your ancestors started losing it. This wasn't a small change. This was almost total. Humans became, essentially, the naked mammal. Not hairless, exactly, but covered in hair so fine and so short, it might as well not be there. Why would evolution do that? Why strip away a built-in coat in a world with no other coats to replace it? The leading answer involves sweat. Your ancestors were becoming hunters, not ambush hunters waiting in the shade. Persistence hunters, the kind who chase an animal for hours in open heat until the animal simply collapses from exhaustion. To run like that for that long in that sun, you need to cool down fast. Fur traps heat. Bare skin, covered in sweat glands, releases it. So your ancestors traded their fur for endurance, for the ability to outlast almost anything on 4 legs. But that trade came with a cost. And that cost was every cold night, every winter, every mountain pass, for the next million years. Here is where it gets strange. Genetic research gives us a way to answer a question that seems, on the surface, impossible to answer. When did humans start wearing clothes? You can't dig up ancient fabric. It rots. It vanishes. There's no fossil record for a fur wrap or a stitched hide. But there is a fossil record, in a sense, hiding on your body right now. Lice. Human head lice and human body lice are, genetically, almost the same creature. But they live differently. Head lice cling to hair on your scalp. Body lice live in clothing, only visiting skin to feed. Body lice couldn't have existed before clothing did. There was nowhere for them to live. So researchers, including geneticist Mark Stoneking, studied the DNA divergence between head lice and body lice. They essentially used lice as a biological clock, and what that clock revealed was startling. Clothing likely didn't appear until around 170,000 years ago. Some estimates place it even later. Think about that gap. Humans lost their fur more than 1 million years before they started covering their bodies again. For over 800,000 years, your ancestors were bare-skinned in a world that included ice ages, and they had no clothing at all. How is that possible? Part of the answer is fire. Controlled fire gave early humans a portable source of warmth, letting them survive cold nights without needing a second coat. Shelter helped too. Caves, windbreaks, huddling together in groups. But eventually, fire and shelter weren't enough. Because your ancestors didn't just want to survive the cold, they wanted to walk into it. This is where anthropologist Ian Gilligan's research becomes important. Gilligan argues that clothing wasn't just a response to cold weather. It was a technology that allowed humans to expand into cold weather in the first place. Without clothing, your range is limited to where your bare skin can survive. With clothing, that boundary disappears. Suddenly, Ice Age Europe is livable. Siberia is livable. Land bridges into new continents buried under snow become crossable. Clothing wasn't just about comfort. It was a key that unlocked most of the planet. And the timing lines up. The genetic estimate for clothing, around 170,000 years ago, sits right around a major cooling period. A moment when parts of the world got brutally cold and humans needed a solution that fire and caves alone couldn't provide. So they turned hides into wearable shelter, something you could carry with you into terrain no naked human could survive. But here's the part that tends to get overlooked. Clothing didn't stay practical for long. Once humans had the ability to cover their bodies, something else started happening almost immediately. Decoration. Archaeological sites show evidence of dyed fibers, shell beads sewn onto garments, deliberate patterns. This wasn't required for warmth. A plain hide keeps you just as warm as a decorated one. This tells you something important about human psychology. The moment covering became possible, identity became attached to it. What you wore stopped being just protection from the elements. It became a signal, a way to say something about your status, your group, your role, without saying a word. This is where the ancient world quietly reaches into your closet today. Because when you get dressed in the morning, you are not just responding to temperature. You are making the same decision your ancestors made, thousands of generations ago, standing at the edge of a shelter with an animal hide in their hands. What does this covering say about me? Psychologists studying clothing today describe something called unclothed cognition. This is the idea that what you wear doesn't just signal identity to others. It changes how you think and behave yourself. Put on formal clothing, and people report feeling more focused, more authoritative. Put on a uniform associated with competence, and performance on certain tasks can measurably shift. Your ancestors used clothing to survive freezing landscapes. You use clothing to survive a job interview. Different threat, same tool. Consider the strangest part of all this. For most of human history walking this earth, your species had no clothing whatsoever. Bare skin, through ice, through storms, through everything the world could throw at it. Then, in a relatively narrow window of time, that changed forever. And it never went back. Every jacket in your closet, every uniform, every outfit you picked out because of how it made you feel. All of it traces back to a hide wrapped around a shoulder 170,000 years ago by someone trying to walk a little further into the cold than their body alone would allow. So tonight, when you get undressed and you hang up whatever you wore today, remember what that motion actually is. It's not routine. It's not meaningless. It's the same motion, the same instinct, the same need to define yourself against the world that your ancestors carried with them out of Africa and into every frozen corner of the earth. If this made you look at something ordinary a little differently, that's the whole point of this channel. Subscribe, and you'll never look at your own habits the same way again. You didn't just get dressed this morning. You did what your ancestors have been doing for 170,000 years.